What I'm about to tell you happened to my family last summer. The police report is public record. You can look it up. Case number 2024-07-1847, Lake County Sheriff's Department, Minnesota. 3 people went missing. Only one came back. And that person was me. My name is Sarah Chen, and I need to tell someone what really happened at Lake Minnewaska last July. The official report says it was a tragic boating accident, but that's not the truth. The truth is something nobody wants to believe. It started when my college roommate Jake inherited his grandfather's cabin on Lake Minnewaska, about 2 hours north of Minneapolis. The old man had died the previous winter, and Jake hadn't been up there since he was a kid. He invited me, his girlfriend Emma, and our friend Marcus for a long weekend to check the place out and maybe get it ready to sell. The drive up Highway 35 was beautiful, all rolling hills and dense forests. But as soon as we turned onto the gravel road leading to the cabin, something felt off. The trees seemed to close in around us, blocking out most of the afternoon sun. Emma noticed it too. It's so quiet, and she was right. No birds, no insects, nothing. Just the crunch of gravel under our tires. The cabin sat on a small peninsula jutting into the lake. It was bigger than I'd expected, a 2-story log structure with a wraparound porch and a private dock. But the whole place had this abandoned, forgotten feel to it. Paint was peeling, weeds had grown up around the foundation, and several windows were boarded up. Grandpa Ed was always kind of a hermit. Mom said he got weird in his last few years, wouldn't let anyone visit. That first night was normal enough. We grilled burgers on the old propane grill, drank beer on the porch, and watched the sunset over the water. The lake was perfectly still, like glass. Marcus, who grew up fishing in Michigan, said he'd never seen water so calm. There's supposed to be a whole town down there. Before they dammed it up in the 1950s, there was this little farming community called Millfield. About 200 people. They were given 6 months to relocate, but some of the older folks refused to leave. What happened to them? Supposedly they moved them out by force, but local stories say some people just stayed, locked themselves in their houses and let the water come. We all laughed it off as typical small-town folklore. But that night, lying in the musty guest bedroom, I kept thinking about those people. What kind of desperation would make someone choose to drown rather than leave their home? I was awakened around 3 a.m. by a sound I couldn't identify at first. It was rhythmic, repetitive, like someone tapping on glass. I lay there listening, trying to place it, when I realized it was coming from outside my window. Tap, tap, tap. I crept to the window and peered through the dusty curtains. The moon was full, casting everything in silver light. At first I didn't see anything unusual. Then I noticed the lake. The perfectly calm water was moving. Not waves exactly, but like something large was moving beneath the surface, creating gentle ripples that spread outward in perfect circles. And the tapping sound, it was getting louder. That's when I saw him. Standing on the dock was an old man in overalls and a flannel shirt. He was facing the house, perfectly still, his face hidden in shadow. In his hand was what looked like a walking stick, which he was using to tap against the wooden railings of the dock. Tap, tap, tap. My heart was pounding. I wanted to wake the others, but something kept me frozen at the window. The man on the dock raised his head, and even from 50 yards away I could see his eyes. They were reflecting the moonlight like an animal's. He lifted his walking stick and pointed it directly at my window. That's when I noticed the water around the dock. It was glowing with a faint phosphorescent light, and shapes were moving beneath the surface. Lots of shapes. I must have gasped or made some sound because the old man's head tilted to one side like he was listening. Then impossibly he smiled. I could see his teeth, too many teeth and too sharp. I stumbled backward from the window, my legs tangled in the bed sheets. When I looked again, the dock was empty. The lake was calm and dark. The next morning, I told the others what I'd seen. Marcus thought I'd had a nightmare. Emma suggested it might have been a local fisherman with a headlamp, but Jake went very quiet. "What did he look like?" Jake asked. I described the man. Tall, thin, wearing work clothes that looked old-fashioned. Jake's face went pale. "That sounds like Grandpa Ed," he said. Emma reminded Jake, "Your grandfather's been dead for 8 months. I know what I saw," I insisted. Jake disappeared into the cabin and came back with an old photo album. He flipped through yellowed pages until he found what he was looking for. A black and white photograph from the 1970s, showing a much younger version of the man I'd seen on the dock. Edward Holbrook, 1974. "That's my grandpa," Jake said. We decided to drive into the nearest town, population 847 according to the welcome sign, to get some answers. The locals were friendly enough, but when we mentioned Lake Minnewaska and the old Holbrook place, people got uncomfortable real fast. Finally, an elderly waitress at the diner pulled Jake aside. She said, "Your grandfather wasn't right in the head toward the end. Started talking about the old town, about people under the water, said they were calling to him. The sheriff had to go out there a few times. Neighbors complained about strange lights and sounds coming from the property at night." "What kind of sounds?" Jake asked. The waitress replied, "Singing, like a whole choir singing underwater." That afternoon, we decided to take the small motorboat out to explore the lake. Marcus had brought his fishing gear, and we thought some normal activity might help shake off the creepy feelings. The lake was deeper than we expected. The fish finder showed depths of over 100 feet in the center, but it was what we saw on the sonar that made us all go quiet. Structures, lots of them, perfect geometric shapes arranged like a grid beneath the water. "Those are buildings. Houses, maybe a church with that tall spire," Marcus said. Jake cut the engine and we drifted in silence over the submerged town. The water was so clear we could actually see down about 30 feet, but beyond that, everything faded into green-black darkness. "Look," Emma whispered, pointing over the side. There was a street sign still standing about 20 feet down. The metal was corroded, but we could just make out the words, "Mill Street." That's when we heard the singing. It started as just a low humming, like wind through trees, but gradually it became clear that it was voices, dozens of them, maybe more. The sound seemed to be coming from directly below us, rising up through the water. The boat began to rock gently, even though there was no wind. The singing grew louder, and now we could make out individual voices, men, women, children, all singing the same melody, but in different keys, creating this haunting, discordant harmony. Marcus grabbed the starter cord to fire up the engine, but it wouldn't catch. Again and again he pulled, but the motor just wouldn't turn over. The rocking was getting more violent now. Emma was gripping the sides of the boat, her knuckles white. The singing was so loud it seemed to be coming from inside our heads. That's when we saw the lights. Deep beneath us, windows were beginning to glow with a soft, yellow light. One by one, like someone was going through the drowned town, turning on lamps. Soon the entire grid of submerged buildings was illuminated, casting rippling patterns of light up through the water. Jake said, "We need to get out of here." But his voice sounded strange, distant. I looked at him and saw that his eyes were unfocused, staring down into the water with a dreamy expression. Emma and Marcus had the same look. They were all leaning forward, drawn toward the edge of the boat. The singing was beautiful now, not frightening at all. It was calling to us, welcoming us. The lights below pulsed in rhythm with the music, and I could see movement in the illuminated windows. People, families, going about their daily lives in their underwater homes. They looked happy, peaceful. I found myself reaching toward the water, wanting to join them. The lake felt warm against my fingertips, and something soft and gentle wrapped around my wrist, tugging me forward. A voice whispered, Come home, a voice whispered in my mind. Come home where you belong. That's when I saw Jake's grandfather. He was standing in the doorway of one of the houses below, still wearing his overalls and flannel shirt. He was waving at us, smiling that too wide smile, gesturing for us to come down. Jake was leaning so far over the side now that he was about to fall in. Emma and Marcus were right behind him. The singing was overwhelming, drowning out all other thoughts. I don't know what snapped me out of it. Maybe it was the sight of something moving in the water near Jake's hand, something with too many teeth. Maybe it was pure survival instinct. But suddenly I could think clearly again, and I realized we were all about to die. I grabbed the emergency flare gun from the tackle box and fired it straight down into the water. The effect was immediate. The singing stopped like someone had flipped a switch. The lights below flickered and went out. Jake, Emma and Marcus all jerked backward, blinking in confusion, and the motor started on the first pull. We raced back to shore without saying a word, but I could feel something following us beneath the surface, the dark shape keeping pace with our boat. It wasn't until we were back on dry land that I dared to look back. The lake was calm and empty, but I swear I could see a faint glow deep beneath the surface like dying embers. We packed up immediately and drove back to Minneapolis that night. Nobody talked about what had happened. What was there to say? Who would believe us? But over the next few weeks, things started to go wrong. Marcus was the first. He became obsessed with swimming, spending hours at the university pool. Friends said he would just float there, staring down at the bottom, humming to himself. One night, the janitor found the pool empty and all the lights on. Marcus was gone. They dragged the pool, checked the security cameras, searched everywhere. He had simply vanished. Emma lasted a month. She started having dreams about the lake, she told me, beautiful dreams where she was swimming down toward the lights, toward the singing. She would wake up with her sheets soaking wet, tasting lake water. The night she disappeared, her roommate heard singing coming from Emma's room, dozens of voices in perfect harmony. When she knocked on the door, the singing stopped. Emma was gone. The window was open and there were wet footprints leading from her bed to the windowsill. Jake held out the longest, maybe because it was his family's place, his grandfather calling to him, but the pull was too strong. He started driving up to the lake every weekend, then every night. He would sit on the dock until dawn listening. His friends tried to stop him, tried to get him help, but you can't explain this kind of thing to a therapist. I was with him the last time. I'd driven up there to try to talk him out of whatever was happening to him. I found him standing waist deep in the water, staring down into the depths. Jake said, "They're waiting for me. Grandpa Ed says it's time to come home." I told him, "Jake, there's nobody down there. Your grandfather is dead." He smiled. That same too wide smile I'd seen on his grandfather's face. Jake said, "We're all dead, Sarah. We just haven't figured it out yet." Before I could stop him, he walked deeper into the water. I waded in after him, but something wrapped around my ankles, something cold and strong that felt like human hands. I barely managed to break free and get back to shore. Jake kept walking until the water closed over his head. I waited there until sunrise, but he never came back up. The police found his body 3 days later, but something was wrong. The coroner said he'd been dead for weeks, waterlogged and decomposed in a way that didn't match the timeline. And there were these marks on his body, like fingerprints covering his arms and legs, like someone had been holding on to him, pulling him down. That was 6 months ago. I've tried to move on, tried to forget, but the dreams won't stop. Every night I hear the singing. Every morning I wake up with the taste of lake water in my mouth, and lately I've been driving north on Highway 35 toward Lake Minnewaska. I tell myself I'm not going there, that I'm just going for a drive, but somehow I always end up on that gravel road leading to the cabin. Last week I made it all the way to the dock before I snapped out of it. I was standing in the exact spot where I'd first seen Jake's grandfather, and the lake was glowing with that soft phosphorescent light. I could see them down there. Marcus, Emma, Jake, and dozens of others. All the people who had been called home over the years, they were standing in the windows of the drowned houses, waving at me, singing that beautiful, terrible song. And in the front yard of the biggest house, wearing his overalls and flannel shirt, was Edward Holbrook. He was smiling and pointing at an empty spot next to him like he was saving it just for me. A voice whispered, "Come home, Sarah, come home where you belong." I ran, got in my car and drove straight to the police station where I told them everything. They were kind but skeptical, filed a report, said they'd look into it, but I could see it in their eyes. They thought I was having some kind of breakdown from survivor's guilt. Maybe they're right, maybe this is all in my head. Maybe my friends really did just have accidents, and I'm creating this elaborate story to cope with the trauma. But if that's true, then why do I keep finding lake water in my car? Why are there wet footprints leading from my bed to the window every morning? And why, when I look in the mirror, do my eyes sometimes reflect light like an animal's? I'm writing this down because I need someone to know what really happened, in case I don't make it back from my next drive north. Because I can feel it calling to me stronger every day. The singing is getting louder, more beautiful, harder to resist. The lake wants me to come home, and I think I want to go. If you're reading this, stay away from Lake Minnewaska. Don't go near the old Holbrook place. And whatever you do, if you hear singing coming from the water, don't listen. Don't let them call you home. Found among the personal effects of Sarah Chen, who was reported missing on January 15th, 2025. Her car was discovered in the parking area of the abandoned Holbrook property on Lake Minnewaska. The lake was frozen solid and no body has been recovered. The case remains open.